lot of therapists talk about reframing thoughts, right? So we want thoughts that help us, not hurt us, essentially. And I'm like, that's what comedy is. It's like reframing, like, your pain or whatever, something unfortunate in like a funny light. And then, you know what I mean? It just like makes life
Yeah.
less heavy, which who can't benefit from that right now?
One degree of separation. The lines all cross, the stories align. One degree of separation. Who's the next? You'll know in time.
Welcome to the One Degree of Separation podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Murphy. On this podcast, we explore the theory of 6 degrees of separation and prove how connected we all are. If you're new here, here's how it works. At the beginning of each 6 episode season, I'll begin with one fascinating guest, who after their interview will recommend someone they know who has an interesting story to tell. This creates a chain of connections and incredible stories. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and on social media at One Degree Pod to meet all these incredible people with me. Today, we trace a truly unique path. She's a former pro basketball player, a licensed therapist, and the hilarious stand up comedian you saw on TLC's My Giant Life. She was referred to me by my good friend Sandy Knights. Let's welcome to the show Krista K. Hi, Krista.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. How's the weather out there in South Dakota?
Not too bad. I moved from Washington, so it's colder here, but the sun comes out more often. So, that works for me.
Yeah. No, I'll be honest with you. I don't think I've ever met anyone from South Dakota. I think you're my first.
Yeah, there's not too many of us, but we exist.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the Dallas, Texas area, so I think our population is probably about 7 times the entire state of South Dakota.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah, probably a little warmer too, I imagine.
Well, sometimes. So first off, tell me how you're connected to our last guest, Sandy.
Yes. So Sandy and I met, we were bartending actually at the Full Throttle Saloon in Sturgis during the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally, and we ended up being placed right next to each other. And she was a good bartender, and I was pretty seasoned as well, and we just worked really well together. And she was so fun, and we're like, "Where do you live?" And she's like, "Las Vegas." And she's like, "Where do you live?" I'm like, "Originally from South Dakota, but I also live in Las Vegas." And we're like, what? And so that's when it started. And then she ended up becoming my roommate. So we lived together for a while. And she's a singer, and I was doing stand up comedy. So, we lived in this condo together, and we were always just doing fun stuff literally every single night. So, yeah, then she turned into one of my best friends. So, yeah, pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I want to start at the very beginning of your story. You grew up in Mobridge, South Dakota. Tell me a little bit about what your childhood was like growing up in that town.
Yes. Well, I'm also extremely tall, and I've always been tall. I'm currently 6'5". Okay. But I wasn't one of those people that had a crazy growth spurt. I was always a head taller than everybody. And because I think the population of Mobridge is like 3,500 people. So that was kind of my identity growing up, in a small place. And everybody knows everybody, which of course has its positives and negatives. But, definitely grew up feeling safe in this little town and taken care of and, just things like that. And then when I got to high school sports and things like that, I I was known as just the tallest girl in South Dakota. So I think I got to 6'5" when I was probably 17. And so, yep, so anytime I was in the paper, it was like tallest girl in South Dakota, and I was like, okay, I get it. I'm the only one. Yes, but also a little sheltered, right? And so I was happy to get out and travel, but I recently just moved back to Mobridge after almost 20 years, so made my way back here. Yeah.
So now you mentioned growing up, you were one of the tallest people in the town. Did that inspire you to play basketball, or did you have a natural talent for that anyway?
Yeah, so actually, well, I was very aware that I was taller than everyone pretty early on. Probably around 8 or 9, I started to realize, okay, I'm different, right? And so But when people said, "Oh, well, you'll be a good basketball player. Oh, it's an advantage to be tall to play basketball." It kind of started as my first, I guess, source of confidence, right? To feel like I belonged somewhere, right? Because, I don't know how familiar you are with like tall women's clothing, but there's not a whole lot, and especially there wasn't in the early 2000s. So, um, yeah, so I just felt, uncomfortable and like, okay, things don't fit me, or I have to wear men's clothes or something like that. But someplace I felt like I belonged was the basketball court. And um and yeah, and it just kind of came from community people and my parents and stuff like, "Oh, you could be good at this." They always say you can't teach height. So so I was very aware I had an advantage, with the sport, and just had to put some energy into it, which I did.
At what age
Yeah.
did you first start playing basketball?
Oh man, I think I started like team basketball, I think in the fourth grade. So I don't know how old fourth graders are, but but 13, 14, something like that, I imagine. Yeah.
Okay, so you started early on, and then you went on to play in high school basketball.
Mhm.
Did your coaches always use your height as an advantage when you're on the team?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, because like in basketball, there's, a lot of different styles that teams play. And instead of kind of some teams, maybe they're fast, right? So they kind of want to play a running game of back and forth. Well, I think my coaches were smart and slowed the game down and kind of used size to an advantage. And so, yeah, I think it really worked. My senior year, we got second at state, and so that was pretty cool. And
Nice.
um, and then I went on to play college basketball um, at Northern State University. Um, and then after that, I played professionally in Australia. So, carried me pretty far. So it was
Yeah, I
fun.
definitely want to talk about your time playing in Australia. That's very, very interesting. But tell me a little bit more about your college days as well.
Yes. So Northern State University is in Aberdeen, South Dakota, so only about 100 miles from Mobridge. I got offers to play other places, but unfortunately my mom had passed away just that year before. So I didn't have like a little brother and stuff. So I didn't feel like I wanted to go very far away from home. And then also I had a lot of memories with my mom going to Northern State and watching the girls play. And I just remember her telling me, like, "You can totally play with these girls." And it's like she was just such a source of confidence for me. And so yeah, it felt like that's exactly where I need to go. So yeah, I redshirted my first year and then played, yeah, the next four. My senior year there, we made it to I think the Sweet 16, I believe, in the Rocky Mountain Conference. So yeah, which is like Denver and a bunch of Colorado schools and stuff. So yeah, it was awesome. I really loved college. I don't know if you've ever heard of Coach Don Meyer, but he was like the all-time winningest coach or whatever. He like surpassed Bobby Knight's record while I was going to school. And he was the men's coach. So for our games, there was thousands and thousands of people there because they wanted to get there early to cheer for him and to see if this is the time he's breaking the record. And so it was really cool to just play in front of such a large, not only a large crowd, but supportive community too. So that was really cool to be a part of that. So yeah.
Now, by the time you reached college basketball, did you feel like there were more people that were around the same height as you, or were you still one of the taller ones?
I was still one of the tallest ones. Yes, yeah, so I'm like one of the I don't even know. I have this unicorn tattoo because it's like being this tall as a woman is kind of like a unicorn. So not too many of us out there, but yeah, I don't think I played against anybody taller than me in college. So, yeah. But I guess taller than high school players overall, but not my height.
So now, when you graduated college, did you move to Australia right away?
So I actually started my master's program. So in Australia, the seasons, basketball's still a winter season, but it's in the southern hemisphere, so their winters are summer, right? And so basically by the time I got out of school, it was already like going because it was, like summer there. So I actually started my master's program, and then that next summer I went to Australia. So I got like
Okay.
about a year of my master's done and then went and played over there and played for that season and then came back and finished my master's degree. So, yeah.
So now, were you recruited by the team in Australia, or did you go there and try out?
Yeah, I was recruited. So I met the coaches. They did like a Midwest tour or whatever and ended up watching me play. And so I met the coaches at a Northern game. Um, and yeah, and then we just kind of stayed in contact. And yeah, it was actually kind of cool because when I was over there were other girls that I played college against that also were on the team or, on a different team that we played against. So such a small world because it's literally on the other side of the planet. So that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
So when they first approached you and said, "Hey, come play for us in Australia," what was your mindset at first? Did you think that was a crazy idea, or were you excited about it?
I was really excited. And there were other like men's basketball players that I knew that played for the same team, just like obviously the men's team. But yeah, and they said they had just a really cool experience and yeah, and I'm all about getting out of your comfort zone and just, living life to the fullest. And I think honestly just like losing my mom suddenly, I think that just really instilled like, oh my gosh, like we never know when our last day is gonna happen or right? We have no idea. So all we have control of is, living, doing what we actually want to do in life, right? And so yeah, so that's kind of my mentality. I mean, it was very intimidating to move to the other side of the planet, but like, well, YOLO.
Yeah, and that's actually something we do have in common. I also lost my mom about 10 years ago to breast
Oh,
cancer.
I'm
So,
sorry
I
to
mean,
hear
I
that.
definitely understand that feeling. Would you say that as you were growing up and playing basketball, was she your biggest cheerleader?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And she was also tall too. She was 5'10". So for her generation, that was probably equivalent to 6'5". And so, yeah, so she definitely, I remember her expressing just her own insecurities with being tall and, and especially being a woman because, there's like a societal whatever pressure to be smaller than men and stuff. And it's just like, well, I'm taller than most men that exist. So it's like, well, how do we deal with that? So yeah, she definitely was just my inner voice of my own confidence, just being tall and I knew and she just thought I could just conquer the world. And so I'm like, well, I'll just borrow that belief in myself, right? And that was really a source of motivation is to just live a big life the way she, thought I could. So, and then I do believe that she's along for the ride too. So it's really, her own experiences too that she gets to have with me. So,
Yeah. Now, did you say she played basketball as well?
so I don't even know if they had basketball when she played. I think she said that they played because she graduated I think in 71 and I think that it wasn't officially a team sport for women. I think that they like would play in PE or something like that, but yeah, it wasn't really quite a thing as it is now.
Okay, so she maybe played as a hobby, but not nothing professional or organized. So now you began your master's program in Australia, or was that here?
That was here. So that was also at Northern. Yep. And then I just kind of took a little break and then came back and finished it.
So what inspired you to take that career path in counseling is what you studied it for, right?
Yes. Yep. Yep. So mental health counseling. Well, okay. So like I mentioned, obviously my mom passed away, and then it happened the summer before my senior year of high school. So my senior year of high school was kind of a blur, and then I go to college, and then I start seeing free counseling, and I'm like, I should probably have some of that. And so I started to go to counseling actually, and I just absolutely love my therapist. She was so, like, hilarious too, and I had never been to counseling before, so I had no idea, what's going on, and she was, like, funny, and she just would, like, hold me accountable, and just, like, I don't know, because I only had, my dad who was, like, not too emotionally intelligent, and didn't really know how to handle, kinda even processing that type of grief, because 'cause I'm sure he was grieving himself, so I just honestly, I had the best counselor. And she also helped me get through, just being an athlete too. Cause like like I said, I was a redshirt freshman, which for those of you that maybe not don't know what that means is like you basically practice for a whole year and then you never get to play in any games. So it's a ton of work, a ton of effort for like no game playing time. So that was hard too. And so anyway, she helped me through all of that and just really gave me a different perspective, just yeah, I guess of everything. And so I just knew like how much she helped me. And I'm like, man, that would be cool to help, you know, help people like she helped me. And it also like broke the stereotype of what I thought a therapist should be, like very like, oh, I have my shit together and I'm not gonna um I don't know, like, let me tell you how to do everything. It's like, that's totally not it. Like, and now being a counselor now, I could tell you we do not have her together. So, but it's about being real, about validating, feelings and just being human with somebody else and just kind of being support for them. So, yeah, so that's ultimately what drew me to that. And I also got my undergrad in sociology, and so what do you really do with that? So you kinda need a master's degree to kinda do anything else, but
So then, after you finished your master's program, you moved to Australia for pursuing professional basketball, which we already discussed a little bit. Tell me a little
mhm.
bit though about like what the differences between living on Australia and living here are.
Yeah. Well, I guess the first thing obviously is just the accent, which, we all kind of know what that sounds like, but I think what was so trippy to me is that, I think my total travel time to even get there was like almost 30 hours, with layovers and whatever. And then I get there, I land, I remember, and it was like 8 a.m. their time, right? And my coach was like, okay, you're not gonna sleep and we have practice tonight. This is gonna be the best way to kind of get you going on our time zone. And it was just so trippy because everyone, like those people that you kind of hear them do like a fake accent, and you're like, okay, that's enough. We get it. You can do an accent. That's how it felt, but it was everybody. And I'm like, can you guys, are we serious? Like, it just was so surreal. And then,
So you
so
were
that
you
was
were going
kind of
around telling people stop talking like that.
yeah, pretty much. I'm like, what? Yeah, and then I was also in a house with other American people, and they were all from the South. So when I came back, everyone's like, "What? What are you talking like?" It was like Australian mixed with the U.S. South, and then I also have my Midwest. I don't even know. I was talking weird. So, yeah, and then also I lived in Melbourne, so that's like a city of like 5 million, 6 million people, like massive. So for me, I had never driven in a city before. And not only was I expected to drive in a city, but also the driver's seat's on the opposite side and you drive on the opposite side of the road. And I'm like, oh my God. And so just like having to fight against your instincts, right? 'Cause, like driving is like mindless at this point, right? Like, okay, stay to the right, stay to the right. And then I had also never been in like a roundabout, you know? Because I mean, there's not a whole lot of traffic here. So, or roundabouts, yeah. And I remember it's like there were so many times where I went to the right and all these cars are like, ah, what are you doing? And you have to fight against your instincts when you're driving, is everything's opposite. So you just have to like relearn how to drive. So yeah, that was pretty wild. And then, basketball wise, the court's a little different actually. So, because I was definitely a low block player, right? And so there were certain moves that I was used to, but then it was like wider. So any move I would try to make that I was used to making, I was actually further away from the basket. So that was something. And also they're extremely aggressive down there. It's very physical. So it was pretty.
Were there moments that you felt like you got fouled, but the refs were like, "Oh, that's normal here"?
Oh, yeah, it was like a full-on punch in the face, and I'm like, "Okay, I guess we can do that." Which, in that case, I just had to learn to be more aggressive myself too, so, yeah, this is pretty wild.
So now, what about
Yeah.
like differences in food out there? Is it pretty much the same?
Um, I would say it's similar. They really like Vegemite, which have you ever tried that?
I have not. I've never really heard of it even.
Yeah, well, it's like, remember that song, like, "I come from a land down under," and it's just like, and then she gave me a Vegemite sandwich. So it's it's basically I don't even know, it's like salt spread. I mean, it's just people just spread it on toast and it's pretty much just salt. It's pretty nasty. So I never adapted to that. Uh, they also eat a lot of like meat pies. So it's basically like, kind of, how you can find, I don't know, like a bunch of different types of cheeseburgers where it's like different stuff. And yeah, so but there, I mean, they still have cheeseburgers and stuff, but it's almost like like a literal meat pie, but like all different kinds. So like kind of like a chicken pot pie vibe, those little things. So, but yeah, that was it was, I don't know, pretty similar. Also, they don't really call them pickles. So I love pickles and I was like, "Where are the pickles?" And they're like, "What are you talking about? You're crazy." And they're just called cucumbers. Obviously they are cucumbers, but they're not called pickles. They're just cucumbers
I mean,
that
here
are in a jar.
there's a big difference though between pickles and cucumbers like that. How do they differentiate them?
I don't know. That's a good question. What, some are in jars and the others aren't? I don't know.
Now, how long did you live in Australia?
Oh man, how long was it? It was maybe like 6 months, maybe a little less than that.
Okay.
Yeah, something
So
like that.
basically one basketball season then.
Yep. Yeah.
Now, were your teammates all from Australia as well, or what was the split difference there?
Yeah, so in Australia, they're allowed, per team, they're allowed to have two imports, which, if you're from a different country, you're considered an import. So it all has to be Australian people except two. So it was just me and then one other girl that was from uh Pennsylvania somewhere. And then yeah, yeah. And then we also lived with one of the male basketball players and he was from the South somewhere. So that yeah, that's how they do it. So it's not like US basketball, professional basketball where they're like, we're just taking the best from the world and seeing what we come up with. Yeah, it has to be mostly Australian players.
So now when you finished your first season playing out there, was it your decision to not continue, or how did that work out?
Well, yeah, I don't know, I like sprained my ankle pretty bad and I don't know, we made it to the playoffs too. And then my dad was actually able to fly down and see me play professional. And it just felt like I was done. Right. So there wasn't really discussion of coming back because I think and this is this is what I remember, like, because you can come there pretty easily on like a vacation visa, right? But then there's like a whole different thing if you want to come back and be it for, if it's for work, right? And so it seemed like they were kind of getting new like imports each year, that I don't really know. I honestly have felt content being done. So, and also, I think I was just defined as a basketball player for so long that I was really ready to just be something else besides like the tall girl that plays basketball. And I'm like, you know what? I'm smart too, dang it. Like I'm getting my master's degree. I have other stuff that I can do. So it just felt right to be done.
So when you left Australia, did you come back to South Dakota?
Uh, yeah, I did. hmm
Okay.
Yes.
How long were you in South Dakota after that?
Yes. So, well, then I came back, and then that's when I finished my master's degree, and then I worked as a counselor at Black Hill State University, which is in Spearfish, South Dakota. I had met somebody that lives in Las Vegas, and she was real fun. And then just randomly, she's like, "Hey, I think you should move to Vegas." And so then I did, and I went, yeah, so I did that, and then I also got a counseling job as like a crisis counselor, and then that was horrible. And then long story short, I got to get back together with an ex-boyfriend, moved back to South Dakota, got the job again at Black Hill State, moved back to Spearfish. This is getting confusing. But then that's when I got picked for the reality show. And that show moved me back to Las Vegas. So I did like 2 little loops around the country.
So you originally then moved to Las Vegas, or I should say for the second time, because of the TLC show.
That's right. Mhm. Yes.
So how did that come about? How were you cast for that?
Yeah, so, I got this message on Twitter back when it was Twitter, and it was like, "Hey, would you like to audition for, like, this tall woman's, like, reality show?" And I was like, "I guess, sure." And so it was essentially just a Skype call, and uh then he was like, "Okay, well, we picked like a group of girls for season 1." So I didn't get picked, but he's like, "Just keep in touch with me, like, about your story, what's going on." And then yeah, so then I did, and then they cast me for season 3. I got picked for it, and um I was going through a breakup at the time, and this other girl named Lindsay who was on she was on the first 2 seasons. She's 6'9". We were both going through a breakup at the time, so they're like, "Let's put him in Vegas to film that, see how wild that can get." So that's kind of how the storyline happened, and I did get told that I was picked for the reality show because I had a sense of humor about being tall. And so they said, they interviewed like over 400 girls, which I didn't even know there was that many tall girls, but he said I was the only one with a sense of humor about it. And when I was going through the casting process, one of the stories that I told is that I had dated a comedian that was not funny, and which gave me like the irrational belief that I could also be a comedian. And so I told that story, and honestly, like, comedy was one of my main coping methods to even deal with being so different than other people, and they just loved that story, and they're like, "Okay, so we're also gonna film you, um, getting into stand-up comedy in Las Vegas." And so I didn't think too much about it because I'm like, "Oh, that sounds fun," you know? But I, again, like, had a professional career path too, and then, a long story short, after the show aired, I was doing stand-up, and, in the entertainment world, having a TV credit is pretty that's what that's a goal, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm entering the comedy scene with a TV credit, and then they're like, "Well," just the bookers there, they were trying to book me to perform, kind of in hopes to get more people in the show or whatever. And then I started getting paid for it. And then I'm like, wait a second, this is pretty awesome and super fun. And also a way to help people, right? So yeah, so that's kind of how my stand-up comedy career was born too. So
Yeah. So
a
they
wild
always
story.
just say that laughter is the best medicine.
It really is, yes. And I just think, yeah, and I just believe that so much because, like in therapy, I don't know if you've ever been to therapy, but a lot of therapists talk about reframing thoughts, right? So we want thoughts that help us, not hurt us, essentially. And I'm like, that's what comedy is. It's like reframing, like, your pain or whatever, something unfortunate in like a funny light, and then, you know what I mean? It just, like, makes life less heavy, which who can't benefit from that right now, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, are there specific comedians you looked towards that kind of inspired your career?
Man, so I like a classic Jim Carrey.
Oh, yeah, big Jim
I
Carrey fan here too.
and of course, I love all the movies he's in, but, if you just watch his, like, classic stand-up, he just is like, "This is so free," and it's just like, wow, 'cause it's just like you watch him perform, it's just like, stage fright, like, that guy probably never even heard of it, It's like he's just lets loose, And, he has an interesting backstory about, using comedy as kind of like, um, just dealing with kind of drama in his household. And so I don't know, I just think it's such a cool I don't know, a cool thing when people can make, um, you know, I don't know, make light of something heavy, right? So yeah, and then for, like, female comedians, I really like Eliza Schlesinger.
Yeah, I like her.
Yeah, so I don't know, and then, obviously, there's not, like, a big entertainment business in South Dakota. So, even being a comedian was never on my radar, you know. But yeah, I'm like, this is pretty fun. Let me keep doing this.
Yeah, I think two of my favorite stand-up comedians, I don't know if you've heard of them, they're actually a couple, Kelsey Cook and Chad Daniels.
Okay, yes, I think I have. Yes, I definitely heard of Kelsey.
Yeah. Yeah, she's got a great bit about, texting her friends about her dead cat. I don't know if you've heard that bit.
No, I haven't.
Basically, she's texting her friends about her dead cat, and, they think she's talking about one of their friends. They don't realize she's talking about a cat. It's a great bit. You gotta check it out if you can find it.
I definitely will. Cause like the cat's named like a person's name or
Yeah, it
something
has
like
the
that.
same name as
Okay.
their friend too.
Oh, I get it. That's a
So,
misunderstanding.
yeah, yeah, so it's it's hilarious.
Yeah, awesome.
So you moved to Vegas to be part of the TLC show, and were you launching your stand-up career while you were on the TLC show?
Well, I was, but I didn't really realize it at the time, I guess, right? So because getting paid to do it didn't happen till after the show aired, which was about 10 months later. So I was like working, I was like bartending and like waitressing, just stuff like that while I was in Vegas. And then the show started to air. And then people were like, you should perform over here. How about over here? And um, it just turns out I really loved having that creative outlet, right? And I'm like, oh, this is fun. And then just to like make people laugh is so rewarding. And just being around other creative people too. It was just, yeah, it really felt okay, this is what I need to be doing. So,
Yeah. So now I know one big misconception that a lot of people have, or maybe it's not a misconception, maybe you can prove it true here about reality TV is that a lot of it is scripted. How true is that?
yeah, so I would never say we were forced to say anything because, like, when I hear script, I think of like you have to learn these lines, but it definitely guided, right? And so scenarios were created, and then they kind of film how you respond to them. Kind of like one example is we went to like the Pepper Mill, which is like a classic Vegas, diner. And it was just like the kind of, the vibe was like day drinking, like fun, like I invited friends and then there were people that were like, "Hey, how tall are you girls?" Just like the same stuff, right? And then but the difference was like, okay, like, the the camera crew was like, "Okay, like stand up, walk out," and they kind of tell us like what order to walk in just for the best camera angle, stuff like that. And then they were like the bartender was like, who's gonna pay this tab?" Right? And I'm like, "'Cause everything's covered," like when you're filming. And I like look back at the executive producer, he's behind the camera. He's like, "Just give him your card." And I'm like, "Okay, you better not run this," because it was like hundreds of dollars. And then she's like, "Okay, here." And I just like fake signed something. I was like, what are they doing? And then they interviewed me outside and they were like, how'd that feel of, that Lindsay left you with the whole bill? And I'm like, what? I was just like, I was not playing along at all. So that didn't even make it into the show because I must have been like, this doesn't make any, you know what I mean? So it was like that kind of stuff. So
So
um
the producers definitely had a storyline in their head that they wanted to try to get to play out.
Yes, exactly. And so, yeah, because each day that we filmed, like all of the footage would go back to, whoever in LA, right? And then people in LA in these studios or whatever, they're like writing up like through the night, like what to happen the next day. And they showed it to me and they're like, okay, Krista wakes up and she pours some tea. And I'm like, what? He's like, look, this is what they want to happen today. Right. And like, and I guess, like, on one hand, I understand why they do that kinda stuff because, like, if something has happened, right, then, like, there should be, like, follow-up on, the drama or whatever, right? Because if you're just kinda willy-nilly following somebody around, it's not that you know what I mean? It's like we only have so much time, and so, like, I get why they do that, um, but they also, like, encourage drinking, right? So it's like open bar. Who wants to, do that? So yeah, and so I mean, I wouldn't say scripted, at least with this one, right? And they do say it's like a documentary style reality show. So of course there's different types of reality shows, but I didn't feel like I was ever forced to do something. They wanted me to like confront her about wearing my clothes, for example, which she was actually doing in real life, right? And she had very large breast implants. I do not have those. So I was like, "Ooh, she might stretch out my shirt with those honkers." So I was like, you know, and they were like, "Okay." They kind of pulled me aside and they're like, "Okay, she's like wearing your clothes. She's stretching them out. She's this and you know." And I'm like, "Okay." They're like, "Now
And
go confront her about it." And I'm
you're
like,
you're thinking to
"Okay."
yourself, "I'm okay with that. I don't see a big deal."
Well, yeah, I'm like, and I mean, it's just not, I'd be like, "Hey, like, you mind if you just, like, ask to borrow a shirt?" That's real life how I'd handle that, but they're like, "Oh, you're pissed." I'm like, "I'm really not." Uh,
How long were you taping the show? Like, how many episodes was it?
so it was 8 episodes total, and then so we did, like, a week on, week off. So the camera crew that was with us also they went to Las Vegas for us, and I think there was also a girl in New York. So there was a few different camera crews, because we were all like individual storylines, except Lindsay and I were the only two girls that were together. So yeah, and I don't even know. It was quite a while. Uh, I don't remember, but let me tell you, it is work. It's like
I
12,
bet.
it's like 12-hour days. So um
And I'd imagine it's probably
yeah.
quite intrusive on your life as well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But they, like, paid for rent and, and, like, showed up with our whatever our coffee order was every morning and, like, I felt taken care of too and, like, yeah. So, that
So
was
overall, you'd
crazy
say it was a
expensive.
great experience.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I think so. It's kinda wild because you sign all this paperwork that's like, "You can't sue us, and we're gonna, like, make you look however we want you to look," and, like, it's like, "Okay, sure."
Now, did they also make you sign like a non-disclosure agreement saying you couldn't talk about it till after it aired, or how'd that work?
Mhm. Yep. Yep. Yeah, they did do that too. Mhm.
Okay. So now, after you finished that show, you started your stand-up career, uh, or I should say, was that after it started airing?
Yeah. So, and I was doing a little bit of it before, it aired and stuff, but nothing, I guess, paid until after the show. Yeah.
Now, what is the stand-up comedy scene like in LA? Or I'm sorry, Las Vegas.
Man, it's pretty fun. Um, it's pretty like close knit people. Yeah. So I don't know. Like typically how people start is like doing open mics, which honestly open mics are like terrifying to me because if you think about it, if everyone's there to do it, then the crowd is not worried about what you're saying or like responding, like a regular crowd, That's yeah, but that's kinda how you start, and that's kinda where you network and kinda meet people, and I was also producing my own shows too, and so I would go there even to just, like, check out new people that maybe I could book on my shows. I ran a comedy show at a hookah lounge and, um, a couple other bars that was, like, on a weekly basis, and then I would just be, on other shows. I was the opener for, do you know who Vicky Barbalock is by chance?
No, no,
So
not
she
sure who that is.
Yeah, so she was on America's Got Talent, and she's, like, signed up with Simon Cowell's talent agency, and she is just the sweetest. Yeah, so I opened for her at Jimmy Kimmel's Comedy Club every Wednesday, um, and then I was also the opening act for a comedy hypnotist that performed at the Paris Casino. So that's what I was doing until the pandemic hit, which took my comedy career away from me. So that's kind of the next phase of this whole story.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the pandemic definitely wreaked havoc on the entertainment industry in general. So,
Absolutely.
so tell me about your struggles during that time period. How did you recover? What did you pivot to?
Yeah. Well, I had been talking to a guy that I actually met in Laughlin, Nevada in like 2019. And then after that, him and his friends came back in 2020, March of 2020, um, for some, a men's trip kind of thing. And then basically I, yeah, it was like, there was definitely talks of the pandemic, and I remember going to comedy shows where the comedians were like making fun of it, like, "Oh, I like my Corona with a lime," just like stuff like that. Um, so we were kind of like, "This is so silly," like what the heck? And then, so I was talking to this guy who lived in Washington, and and then he's like, if you ever want to come visit Washington, you can absolutely do that. And I'm like, oh, I'm good. I'm like really busy. Like, there's no way. And then a few days later, everything shut down. Like all my shows got canceled. Like everything I was doing just completely stopped. And and I think they were kind of saying like 2 weeks to flatten the curve or something like that. And I
I
was
remember
like,
that.
okay, yeah. And and I was like, I guess if I'm going to visit this guy that's pretty cool, let me do it now because once this is over, once we're back up and running in a couple weeks, then I won't have time. And I don't know if this was in the talks kind of like where you live, but there was talks of like closing state borders where people couldn't travel state to state. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I need, like, if I'm gonna go, I have to go right now, right? Because then with my luck, I'll get all the way there and they're like, nope, no entry because you don't live here or something. So then I ended up just like driving through the night and then going to stay with this guy who lived on his parents' property in a mother-in-law suite. And I was like, okay, that's cool, but whatever. Anyway, long story short, we got married 7 months later. And I've moved to Washington.
Now, after moving to Washington, did you still pursue stand-up comedy at all elsewhere, or
Well, it didn't really come back until like, and well, it was super strict in Washington too. So I did a couple shows at like, it's like a brewery in like the small town that I was at, but really they didn't, it wasn't, I don't know, it was almost like kind of underground, kind of like, I don't even know. It was really weird how they were handling it. There was even like some hotline where it's like, if you see any businesses open or something, like call and report. And I don't know, it was really intense. So it wasn't very easy to do stand up during that time. So
yeah?
yeah, but yeah, so that's kind of like where it, yeah, decreased. But I mean, since then I've done shows. I just headlined a couple weekends ago in Rapid City, South Dakota. So I definitely still do it, just not, it's not like a nightly thing like it was. I also have 3 kids now, so
So it's definitely
uh,
taken a back seat to other things in your life then.
yes, exactly. I totally thought I was gonna be ready for motherhood, just, living in Vegas and, having a nightlife job, but no, motherhood's a different ballgame. I was not prepared.
So now if you had to sum up your entire career between basketball and the reality show and comedy in, like, one word or phrase, what would that be?
Maybe, like, chasing joy or something like that,
It's good, I
you
like that.
know? Yeah, because it really is. Because 'cause I'm like, "Okay," and not just joy for me, but giving it, right? Because I've always had a desire to help others, right? And it's like, I can't solve everyone's problems or whatever has happened to them, but, if I can bring some joy, that's at least like a break, from whatever's going on in their life. And I think that's, a really important thing that comedy does. And so I think it's so needed. So the fact that comedy wasn't essential during the pandemic, that's wrong in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely, I agree. So now
Yeah.
as we start to wrap things up here, tell me about the person you're recommending as my next guest.
Yes. Okay. So Holly Hoffman. So she is also from South Dakota. She grew up in Eureka. Um, and so I met her. So when I was at Northern, I entered this, it was like a Miss NSU pageant. So it was like if basically if you won, then you would go to try out for like Miss South Dakota, like that kind of stuff. And I had always enjoyed that kind of girly stuff too, not just being like a basketball player. Anyway, so she was running that at the time, and she has a daughter that's the same age as me, who's also tall. And so we knew each other, in high school sports and stuff like that. And she just would work with me on okay, and I had also never I had never walked in heels before. And she's like, "Okay, we need to practice walking in heels." And I just remember feeling like I was I don't even know, like one of those baby giraffes or something. But she like helped me, walk in heels and stuff, and just really helped me with my confidence, stuff like that. And she's always been so just like special to me, and she reminds me a lot of my own mom. So, and that's a big deal there. But then she went to be on Survivor Nicaragua. So it was kind of like another South Dakotan on a reality show, which was cool. And then she kind of launched a speaking business after that. It's like a motivational speaking thing. And I've always felt called to do that, and that's actually what I'm in the midst of creating myself right now is just getting like again combining that sense of humor with like life-changing therapy skills, things like that. And so I consider her my mentor for speaking as well. And so, excited to work with her, and she's just an overall great positive human. So, yes, very excited to recommend her.
Awesome. I really look forward to talking to her. Thank you so much, Krista, for doing this with me. And thank you so much, everyone else, for listening. Join me next Tuesday as we talk with the next link in the chain. And be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and follow on social media, One Degree Pod. Thanks again, Krista.
Thank you. Bye.